Two Hammers podcast. Hello and welcome to the Two Hammers show here on Claret and Booze. This show moving forwards will be hosted by either myself, Gary or John and one other hammer. Two Hammers. The clue is in the title. The idea is that we invite somebody else in from the outside to give a different perspective, a fresh perspective on current events at West Ham. If you want to criticise me or John, especially John or Gary, that's absolutely fine. Crack on in the live chat. But in the live chat, please, please, please be nice to the guests. Don't be rude. We're going to talk. We're going to have a chinwag on current events. And then probably the last 10, 15 minutes, we'll do a QA as well, where you can kind of put your questions in the chat and then we'll have a little chat about what you want us to talk about as well. Okay? So I think that's pretty much cleared it up. So let's get on with the show.
Corinne, annoying. Even when he's not here, he annoys me.
Can I just tell people in the chat, slag me off all you like, I don't fucking care. So, knock yourselves out, say what you like. When that come up, I thought you'd been sacked, John.
No, Nick's very professional, isn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway,
well.
So welcome everyone watching. If there's anyone watching, I'm not sure. Welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's John, aka Virgil, and this is the Two Hammers podcast. And don't adjust your screens because he's back. I don't know where he's been. He's going to fill us in. It's Nigel Kahn, the unofficial West Ham historian. How you doing, Nigel?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm just relieved they didn't call it the Two Irons podcast.
Where have you been? Where have you been? Everyone's been asking where you are.
Mate,
where you been?
I canoed across Scotland, haven't I? Hey?
I'm not having that.
Back
I'm not
from
having
my
that.
travels,
There's no photographic evidence.
Mate, I've got photographic evidence and you know I have. So
What'd you do?
I kayaked or canoed, actually. No, a proper canoe. It's me and my brother and a few other people. We started at Fort William and we finished at Inverness. And you canoe through 4 locks, including Loch Ness. And you camp by the side of the locks. You camp wild in forests and woods and whatever. Yeah. And you just have a good time, frankly.
At one with nature.
Yeah. 85 kilometres. Loved every minute of it. Weren't looking forward to it. Must admit, I thought I was only canoeing Loch Ness. And we had a couple of really good Geordie boys that took us. And they laughed their head off because it's like, when I admitted, I was talking to them and saying, when I booked it, I see this thing that said, "Why'd you come?" I said, "Well, I see this thing that said canoe Loch Ness." So I thought, well, I've been to Loch Ness. I like it there. Looks nice. I'll canoe around Loch Ness. Not a problem. I said, I thought you'd pick us up overnight, drop us off at a B&B. We'll stay somewhere nice, pick the boat up. I think, what's all this wild camping, digging an old crap in and everything else? And, eating. Actually, the food weren't bad. The boys were fantastic company. Yeah. There was like 5 other couples there. There was a couple from America and boats and everything, and everybody really got along as well. There was no arguing, no snidey people, and everything. And me and my brother had a great laugh.
Did you spot the Loch Ness monster at all?
I did actually, yeah. There is a funny thing, because I brought him home from my granddaughter. So no, but what we discovered is, so we go along. We're on the side of Loch Ness, and they said, "Oh, the Loch Ness monster hunter. He lives just along the shore, like 2 minutes away." So I walked along, and you read the story. And there's this old bloke living in a van on the shore of Loch Ness, and he's lived there since 1991. And he left his girlfriend, sold everything up, and his parents gave him some money, and he lives. And they asked him, like, do you look out every day for the monster? And I think the geezer must be so fed up looking at it, because he went, well, some days I look this way, and some days I look that way. Yeah. He said, and then I will look out across the loch. And I thought, oh, you ignorant bastard. But I suppose he's asked that question. But I got talking to him there was a photograph about 4 or 5 weeks ago taken by a tourist, and there was a shadow under the sea and a little thing. And I said, did you see the photos? And he said, yeah, the tourist. He got right excited then when I mentioned the photographs. Yeah, the tourist brought me the photos, and it was me that contacted the press and everything. And he explained all about the shadow and the movement and everything else. And I went, do you think it was the monster then? Thinking, oh, you're barking mad. I want to know how barking mad is. And he looked at me like I was mad. He went, well, no, it weren't. It was a seal. You know, and I'm thinking...
Oh, you know what's happened? Hang on, I just want to interrupt you. Yeah. Someone's just logged in and changed it to 2 irons. Look. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm definitely not the giver. Well, I mean, some would say that you're probably more inclined to see Loch Ness than a player coming through the door at West Ham. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not one, you know, to get hung up on transfers. They'll come when they come. They turn up. I don't get upset or worried about it because we can't control it. You know, we can all comment and give our suggestions, and the people, a lot of fan base will go over the top. Yeah. You know, picking on players that are named. You know, we've been linked probably. I don't know. We've probably been linked with 70, 80 players. I'm sure someone on YouTube or somewhere's kept a list.
Have you been keeping up to date with it then while she was away? Or did you take a break totally?
No. I went dark. Yeah, I went so dark. Even Nick was worried about me and messaged me direct.
I was really worried about you. I thought you was dead.
Yeah, well, I just cut all nothing. No Facebook, no WhatsApp, no nothing.
Yeah. Well, you missed a lot, mate. You've missed a lot. And I just wanted to interject and interrupt you again because a lot of people know you are obviously you're the unofficial historian. Well, you're not the best quiz. You're not the best at the quizzes anymore because I did beat you that time. But for those of you who don't know and those of you who do, Nigel's obviously got a fantastic website called my6foot2.com. And on there, it's lots of free information, free fantastic articles written by himself and guest writers as well. But Nigel has been a big supporter of our channel since we started it almost 2 years ago. Nigel, can you believe? Yeah. And I think me, Nick, and Gary would always say that Nigel, for whatever reason, Nigel seemed to like us from the off, and not many people like us, if I'm honest with you. And Nigel supported us massively. I know Nigel promoted us on the fantastic podcast that he does, more than just a podcast. I'm sure you all know that as well. But give it a follow, give it a listen. But we just want to say, Nigel, thank you very much for all the compliments, all the pushes, all the, I suppose, free advertising you give us, really. So, must appreciate that. But what was it about us that you liked, Nigel? Was it me, mostly me, or?
Funny enough, John.
Don't say it was Nick.
No. I think you did seem to be the more sensible one out of the three of them. It was like when I first listened to More Than Just a Podcast, and Johnny Bucci on there was the one I'm magnated to. I mean, my first thoughts of Sean Whetstone were he sounded like the bastard son of Ken Livingstone. And when I met him for the first time, I was expecting a geezer with this weird tash to have a satchel, you know, and everything. But you know, hey-ho. No, I think the energy and everything. I'd met Gary before and had a good chat with Gary before. And then, you'd started the Facebook page first. I suppose that helped. I get to read what Nick.
Well, yeah, the funny thing is the Facebook page only started because Nick got banned from others. So we started.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. I wasn't a great user of West Ham Facebook pages.
No, me neither, so actually.
I never really, Nick, you know, I got messages, we're starting up this Facebook group, will you come on? And I said, yeah, I'll tell you, I've got one stipulation. And I hope it's still stuck to this day. I said, you cannot let Sean Whetstone join it. Because I was a bit sick and tired of being some like double act with him as much that I just wanted a bit of freedom away from him, like a little corner. Yeah. And it was a great laugh on the Facebook page. And then I remembered you started doing the short videos, the Facebook Live stuff and whatever. And then it progressed with the YouTube stuff. And me, you know, I've done it before with other things. I'll always promote things with nothing in return. You know, I don't whatever. It ain't about that. It's if I see something that's decent, you know, that I think other West Ham fans are going to enjoy, then I'll give it all the help You know, I'll help anyone.
No, we massively appreciate that, mate. I mean, I know at times our WhatsApp group is probably a bit too much for you because we do often have many arguments, especially me and Nick, as you know, and you can.
Yeah.
That's part and parcel of it. I'm sure you fell out with people in the past, but me and Nick could fall out hourly.
Yeah, not. I don't think I have quite in that style. I mean, people. I've said the story about the day that you all fell out, and then so it ended up keep setting up all these different WhatsApp groups. and one day I was working, and I've discovered a WhatsApp group with like 75 messages on, and when I've clicked on it, I couldn't reply. And I'm thinking, why can't I reply? And when I've read through every message, it turns out that in that day, a new group had been set up. You'd all had a row and you'd all fucked off and left me in there on my own.
Yeah, I know. I can't. I know. Well, in the old days, when you had an argument, you just had an argument and went home. But now, because of WhatsApp, you can storm out virtually, can't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
you know, it's all the fun of the fair, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. Honestly, me and Nick, we've got the same aspirations. Everyone want West Ham to do well, but you just obviously all see it in a different light. I mean, sorry to interrupt you again, but obviously moving on, massive thanks to everything you've done for us, and obviously we love carrying the 6'2" brand as well, and obviously more than just a podcast. Fantastic listen for those of you that don't know about it, and give it a follow, as I said. Look. The obvious, you know, it's reared its ugly head again. The transfer window and the lack of activity out there by the club. People in the chat, just so you know, obviously we're not responding to anything chat-wise at the minute, and we will ask for questions towards the end of the show. But so don't think we're ignoring you. Obviously, Nigel, you know I'm a fairly optimistic West Ham fan, and others would be, you could say, fairly pessimistic. But even I'm getting a little bit concerned now, and you know, it's all spiraled from, you know, less than 12 hours after lifting that trophy. You know, me and you and the others down the Black Lion celebrating. You know, I'm not ashamed to say there was tears coming from my eyes. I remember you was the same, and it's all sort of spiraled to me, and it was all the wheels of falling off, if you like, were all put into motion. You know, within 12 hours, our great owner, David Sullivan, was on TalkSport with one of his many stooges, Jim White, giving a fantastic interview and telling people that basically Declan Rice will and is up for sale and will leave. Now, you know, that's football's worst kept secret. We knew it was going to happen, didn't we? Let's be honest. But from my perspective, that was the start of a very bad chain of events, or a lack of chain of events. I think that, to me, coming out so quickly, he didn't need to come out and advertise the fact that Rice was going to go. I mean, everybody knew that Rice was going to be probably involved in some sort of bidding war, and there was going to be a bigger club looking to take him, right? We all knew that. So I could never understand why he came out and did that. And since that, it's almost like that has been a big setup. He set us up to fail. That's how I see it. I truly believe that. And I'm quite an optimistic fan, Nigel, right? But we're 3 weeks away now from kickoff. We're putting in low ball offers for players that a lot of fans are not even interested in buying. I know it's not up to the fans, but a lot of fans are turning their nose up. I just want to get your stance on, obviously, first and foremost, David Sullivan and his initial coming out after that European final, because we haven't spoken since then. So
no, I mean, yeah, I suppose it's bad timing. At the end of the day, we all know, you know, this has been a done deal. He was, as Sullivan said, they promised Rice, you stayed this season, we'll let you go. Yeah. So the Rice family and his representatives and Sullivan all agreed West Ham, he's going to go at the end of this season, or at the end of the season that's just gone.
Yeah.
Now, and on art, did we really think we were going to win that trophy? Despite I predicted it, you know, you never really believe it until you see it, do you?
Of course not.
No. But to come out, I don't have the problem with what he said. Yeah, it's a bit of honesty in a way, which is a 50-50 thing with David Sullivan. But to come out as quick as he did, he didn't have to do it. But I think the problem is that the thing is, when you ask David Sullivan a question, he will give you an answer. And I don't know if there's, you know, certain things that we could put a label on him or whatever. Many people will label him, but I think that's the makeup of the man. I've emailed him direct, and I remember the first time I did it, and I was stunned with the honesty of his reply. So, this is the thing, and I think what happens is as well, and I've said this before with people, I imagine he gets a lot of contacted by a lot of people daily. Claret and you talk to him, Sean Whetstone talk to him, XWHU talks, they try and talk to him and whatever. He gets badgered, and I think he just tells, the stuff that don't come out actually that I've seen is frankly mind blowing, because sometimes it's like, oh, you can't put that out because he's too honest.
Yeah, but the thing is with that, Nigel, I totally understand what you're saying, and you've had more contact with him than I ever have. I've never had any contact with him whatsoever, even with an email, whatever. I've got no interest. But from that perspective, what I would say is he's our captain. He's at the top of the ship. He's running our club, right? Yeah. He should know better than that. And to me, it stinks of absolute unprofessionalism or lack of professionalism, in my opinion, first and foremost. And secondly, the only thing I took from that TalkSport interview, in my opinion, mate, I know what you're saying in terms of being asked a direct question and him giving a direct answer. To me, it stank of greed. He couldn't wait to create a bidding war. He was like a kid at Christmas. You get up at 5 a.m., you're sneaking around, can't wait to open your presents. To me, what he did there was, as soon as humanly possible, he started a bidding war. And I feel that again was an absolute lack of respect for West Ham fans, because he didn't even allow us to enjoy our moment in the sun. How many moments like that have we had? That was my first time of West Ham lifting a trophy of note. I know you've seen a couple, but in my lifetime, anyone under the age of 45, there's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I don't care if he's being honest. I don't care if he's too honest or whatever it might be. He needs to start, and it won't change because he never has. You know this better than most. He's never had any respect for us as a fan base. And that's what it stinks of to me. An absolute disregard for the fans.
Yeah, possibly.
Can you see what I'm saying or not?
I can see why you think that. But I think he doesn't think that way. I just think he don't think. He's not, and the thing is, he's a successful businessman, but he's a businessman. He's not a businessman that puts on a suit, goes into an office, and does his deal. He's not like Alan Sugar sitting around or whatever. He works from home permanently. Yeah, when he ain't on holiday with Get Your Tits Out, whatever her name is. Yeah. So Titiana, I think.
Titiana, yeah.
Or whatever. So Tampika Tits Out. So he lives in his house and works in his house. Now that says something about a person that don't want to go out. He's never had an office. Never had an office at Upton Park. Ain't got an office at the stadium because he don't ever go there to do work.
So you suggested he's got a lack of social skills?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
So are you really? I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that a theory. So you think he literally has no social skills and don't have no filter, don't know how to control himself?
Exactly right.
Really?
Exactly right. Yeah. No, wow. I do. Honestly, I do.
No, I respect your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just never thought of it like that.
I've got a son on the autistic spectrum, and there's a lot of traits I can see in David Sullivan that my son will share. If you talk to my son and ask him a question, he gives you the answer.
Wow.
He don't lie. He don't just sit up, and this is the thing. And when you look at it and the fact that he doesn't socialise, if you look at him and Gold, the only time you ever see him together was at a football game. These are two businessmen that are in business together. And I don't see photographs of them together except at a football game.
You never saw him out to dinner. I never saw him.
Every manager that's ever signed a contract at West Ham, where's the photographs been taken? David Sullivan's house. So they have to go to him.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you look at that,
I mean, that is.
And when you look at it, and this is the thing, when you look at it like that, some of the way and the mannerisms that he speaks, I honestly do think I see, and I'm not. Listen, people that don't know me go, "Oh, he's a Sullivan lover," or whatever.
Nigel's not a Sullivan lover.
I was the bloke not GSB out as such, but I was fighting them all the way over the move from and doing my best to give them all the stick and everything, Golden Sullivan I could. So, but when you look at it that way, that is what I believe. So I don't think he's sitting there thinking, I'm going to start a bidding war. But the thing, and this is where I put it on the people, yeah? There are people out there that possibly share the same thinking as me, yeah? But they will use that, so they will deliberately ask him questions. Rather than leaving him alone, they'll deliberately ask him questions, knowing they will get a response from him. They will ask him, and he will respond.
You know what? You've made me see it from a completely different angle, and we haven't spoken about this.
I've only emailed the geezer 4 times. Yeah, I've emailed the bloke 4 times, and every time he emailed me back within half hour. And he don't know me from Adam. Never met me. I doubt if he listens to a podcast. I doubt if he knows anything about me.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm just Joe Ordinary. Yeah.
Do you know what? And the thing is, and forgive me if I sound non-sympathetic to autism, because I know obviously your son has autism. So don't take it the wrong way if I do at any point of this conversation say anything untoward. It's not meant like that. But you've made me realise that, because I've sat here for the last few weeks, me, Nick and Gary have been debating, we've been talking on WhatsApp, and we're at the end of our tether trying to decipher what on earth is going on. Like, in terms of everything he does and says is almost, wow, what's he doing that for? You can't put your finger on why he's doing things. You can't understand why he's saying what he says. And you can't understand the way he runs the football club. And maybe the reason we can't understand any of that is because we're not aware of this problem that he may or may not have as it is. Do you know what I mean?
But the thing, what I would say is that when I went to school, there was no such thing as kids being autistic. But there must have been autistic kids I went to school with. I can look back now and go, well, there was a couple of kids who were a bit like my son. So you think, well, they were there. They weren't. What were they diagnosed? They were diagnosed as, the stupid kids, the silly kids that acted up or causing trouble, or for whatever reason. Nowadays, there's so much more knowledge about it.
Yeah.
So actually, it was probably out there in the 1950s and 60s when Sullivan was going to school or going through it. Never diagnosed. Never diagnosed.
And look, I don't want to get caught up on that tonight, but because at the end of the day, without being ignorant or rude to the situation that he may or may not have, or the syndrome, whatever you call it, at the end of the day, us as football fans, we're only going to judge him on how he runs our club.
But then what I would say though, being that though, he's got to be an intelligent man to be as successful as he is. Yeah.
Yes, but this is another reason you can't get your head around some of what he does, because you think he's an absolute successful businessman, self-made billionaire. Yeah. And you think, how has he got to that stage when he makes such, we see as poor decisions as fans? From the outside looking in.
No, undoubtedly. Look, before they'd won that trophy with West Ham, the Europa Conference League, all they had was the Freight Rover trophy, or it might have been the Johnston's paint when they won it. But I think it was the Freight Rover at Birmingham City, and a couple of playoffs. So, they had the first thing they did when they bought Birmingham was sack the manager, and then the manager that replaced them relegated them. Right. The first thing they did when they bought West Ham was sack the manager, replace him with another manager, and then get relegated. Yeah, they kept making the same mistakes. The mistake after the mistake. If we bring it up to nowadays, after 30 years of football, did you really think Southampton were going to take that bid? Now I can understand in a way lowballing. Yeah, a lot of people lowball. When I go out and I'm trying to strike a deal, I'm never going to go, I'll tell you what, mate, I'll give you the asking price. I'll be a bit cheeky. I'll tell you what, my daughter's got a watch she wants to sell. How much that watch worth, gear? 200 quid. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 50 quid, but I'll give you the cash now if you really need the money. Yeah, and my daughter did the deal, funny enough. But anyway, anyway, and I don't wear watches.
No.
So, um, but that's the way of the world. You know, you
Yeah,
start
I
off with
know.
low ball and whatever, but there's low ball, yeah. Then there's
And then
what
it's
I
taking the
think,
piss.
yeah, stupidity.
I
And
mean,
if
because it's come out tonight as well that we've apparently offered 20 million for Maguire. So we've gone in.
yeah,
Listen, whether the fan base want them two players or not, this is neither here nor there at the moment.
yeah,
But we know Southampton have said they want 40 million. And no one really knows what Man United wanted for Maguire until this point, maybe. But we know they paid, they paid for him? 80 million, did they?
yes.
So it doesn't matter what form he's in at their club at
Yeah.
the minute. Going in at £20 million for me is ludicrous. Now, we spoke before we came on, and I know that you said, you've been talking about it to other people and that, but obviously Harry Maguire's wages are a massive problem because I think he's on 180 grand a week, but I'm sure he got an increase on top of that because of Champions League qualification. It was written into his contract, so I think he's on maybe 230 now.
Yeah.
But why are we going in almost at 50% of the market value? I mean, I know what you're saying, but this isn't a car boot sale. This is a multi-million pound industry. And I get you want to go in and get the best offer available, but come on, Nigel, just 50% of the asking.
That's for me. That's naivety. There is that ain't even. You know, when you think, is that a starting point for negotiation? I don't even think it is. You know, that if you go and try and buy a car that's 10 grand and go, I'll tell you, I'll give you £1,000, mate. The geezer's going to go, I'll tell you what, fuck off. I don't even want to deal with you. Excuse my French. No, but it is, isn't it? And that's the thing. So if someone had come in for a 10 grand motor and said, mate, we take 6.5, you try and negotiate. Yeah. But if they go in too low that you think they're taking the Michael out of you, you're going to tell them to sod off and go down the Kermit, aren't you? So
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you'd agree. I wouldn't want to pay £40 million for James Ward-Prowse. For me, he's a good Premier League player. He's got great free kick attributes, as we know. I think there's a little bit of snobbery flying around in terms of people saying he's crap, he's no good and all that. I think he's better than that. But I think that the price tag is what is putting fans off. Fans are looking at that and going, £40 million? I think £40 million is a lot of money. Obviously, he's worth that to Southampton, like Declan Rice was worth the 105 million that we sold him for. So what I'm saying to you is would you be happy with James Ward-Prowse, but just not at 40 million? Or are you one of them fans?
Listen, it'll cost us what we have to pay for him.
Right.
Will we improve the team? And at the end of the day, a lot of people big up resale value and whatever. And there is a thing. The problem with West Ham is for years and years, especially since the move, we've seemed to have always bought 28-year-olds.
Yeah.
28-year-olds.
Yeah.
One of the before this, a very successful period in our history, possibly, was when we got relegated in 2003. We bought Pardew in. And Pardew went out and he bought Rio Coker, he bought Joby McAnuff, Adam Nolan, the three boys from Wimbledon, as they were at the time.
Yeah.
He brought in Bobby Zamora, he brought in Marlon Airwood. When you look at it, even Yossi Benayoun, these were players that we were near enough. Even McAnuff and Nolan, I think we sold for more money than we paid for them. We got big money for Rio Coca. We got good money for Zamora, who was deemed surplus for requirements. I still think we doubled our money on him. We got good money when we sold Airwood to Aston Villa. So what we'd done is we'd gone out and bought young players that hadn't played Premier League football at that period. Zamora hadn't got into the Spurs team and really done anything. Airwood had been at Forest in the Championship. And the other three were Wimbledon boys.
Yeah.
But we bought them and then we kicked on and we made good money out of them.
Yeah.
So we'd never really looked at that, though, and replicated it. We keep buying these 28-year-olds and you think that all we've done is keep buying for the here and now, keep buying for the here and now.
Yeah.
But when Bilic was there, he went out, didn't he, and brought in Lanzini. Now, Lanzini's been a fantastic servant to this club. You know, the fact that he's walked away at the
No
end
resale
of his
value,
contract.
though, is there?
You
So
say
who
that
cares?
he
But who
did 8
cares?
years, mate. He did
Yeah,
8
exactly.
years.
Exactly.
So
That's what I'm getting at.
you got the value out of him.
Yes.
There.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
So, but if we keep buying 28-year-olds, we're buying at the peak. You were only going to sell for less. The only one we really made a profit on doing that, well, there's a couple. You could say Payet. We earned profit on,
Who?
and I Payet.
Who?
And
Who?
what do you mean? Who?
Payet? Who's Payet?
Payet, Dimitri Payet.
It's Payet, for God's sake. He was in England. It's Payet, for God's sake.
I just say it. P-A-Y is pay. Yeah. E-T is et. Payet. So I've got to give you grammar lessons as well.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway,
in regards to this whole resale value thing, I'm a bit like you. I get a little bit dumbfounded by it in terms of I'd rather buy younger players because I want longevity. I want longevity out of their career at West Ham. I don't care what we sell them for in the end.
No.
And I think this fixation. This fixation comes from that whole phrase, which I bloody hate, the Red Bull model, right? The Red Bull model, which is transcended over to obviously Brighton, the way they do business, and probably every fan base, most fan bases in the Premier League, look over at Brighton and think that's how
Brighton and Brentford.
Business. Yeah, Brighton and Brentford, but I'd say more so Brighton for me.
Well, you say that, but the thing about people don't realise is the Brentford owner and the Brighton owner used to work together,
right?
Before they fell out,
right?
So they both got the same.
Okay, so they both got the same mindset.
Both got the same mindset and model, and both use the same algorithms.
Okay, but from the outside looking in, the Brighton model seems more successful because of the amount of money they're selling the players for.
You could say that, but then again, Brentford spent years in the Championship hanging around the top, not getting promoted, every year selling their best players, but still managing to you think they failed to go up and they sold Ollie Watkins and Ben Rama. Yeah. Next season they went up.
No, I get what you're saying, but if you look at the Brighton model, Cucurella, Caicedo might go for 100 million. Dan Burn went for good money.
Brighton are a few years in front, possibly, of where Brentford.
Yeah, maybe so. But I don't get caught up on that. You see, I don't understand because there will come a point when Brighton will have to stop doing that. Surely that can't go on forever. I mean, what I mean is, there must be there can't be an endless pot of players that they will always find that will always fill the holes of the players they sell.
That is the thing,
as they get into Europe, they're in Europe this year, and if they become regulars in Europe, surely that need to sell diminishes. But anyway, for me as a West Ham fan, I don't care to some extent about the age of a player. I just want the player to be of good caliber and be able to come in and hit the ground running. Now, this brings me on to another. This brings me on to another point about the whole theory about David Moyes loves to buy or looks to buy already established Premier League players. Now, we go back and forth about this whole scenario. Do you go and buy a kid from abroad? Do you go and buy a JWP or somebody like Scott McTominay, who's an established Premier League player? People get really transfixed by this whole ideology of what sort of player you should buy. Now, for me, every player you buy is a risk. Because if you look at Cucurella, he was fantastic at Brighton. He went to Chelsea, had a shocker. Now, you could say Chelsea as a overall were in turmoil, but he had a shocker. What I'm trying to get to the point is, though, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. You can buy a player from anywhere. So I just wanted to get your stance on it. In your mind, is there such a thing as if you buy proven Premier League quality that it's definitely going to transpire onto your team and your success?
No, because Danny Ings, in a way, was proven Premier League quality.
Yeah.
But you could see they've got to be proven Premier League quality that can fit into the way that you want to play. Now, obviously, we've got this, Moyes ball, as we now call it. Are these players gonna fit into that system? There's not really. I don't know how many teams. There's a few teams that play the sort of Moyes ball, which is let them have the ball, but try and do as much damage with it when you have the ball for the least amount of time.
Yeah.
It's fluctuated the success of it. He had a year and a half where it worked, or a season and a half where it worked. And then he had a season and a half that we just had where, frankly, it blew hot and very cold. So we'd say, oh, it didn't work. But then at the end of it, it's won us a trophy. And the thing about for me is I don't get hung up on league positions. You know,
No, I know you don't. No,
I don't give a monkeys, because I tell you now, we might finish 6th if we did, but it ain't going to be repeated and repeated and repeated. That there is no way that, and unless you get the mad money, and it's not even a billionaire. We got a billionaire owner. What you need is like state-backed money now to actually break into that top.
No, I get what you mean, and I'm sorry to interrupt you again, mate, but this is obviously a two-man show, and I don't. Yeah. I feel rude if I interrupt you, so I do apologise. But I just wanted, otherwise I might forget. My point is that we're never going to compete with Man City. We're never going to compete with, maybe Arsenal's new ownership. The Yanks are suddenly investing a big amount of money into Arteta at Arsenal, right? But the thing for my mind is that as much as our owners ain't got that type of money, in my mind, they still lack massive ambition. And I know you'll argue probably that last year we did have a good spend up. But to me, in the main, I don't think we have any ambition to really push on. I almost feel like David Moyes' relative success over the last few years, again, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But this is my opinion at the minute, because I've got a real hatred towards Sullivan at the moment. I almost feel like Moyes' relative success over the last couple of years, I think it's become a little bit of a hindrance to Sullivan. I think Sullivan is hell-bent on West Ham. He would be over the moon if we just maintained Premier League status year in, year out. 17th every season is where he wants to be. I think he aims so low that we're never going to get any higher. And the last 2 years, that's why. And people are going to go mad at me in the chat, and I'm glad I'm not looking at it. This is why I have to give Moyes a little bit of credit for what he's done, because he's actually broke the mould in so much as he has given us a few years of relative success. I know the football's been shit last year, but we got out of jail by winning the trophy, right? I actually think that the little bit of success we've had is a little bit of a hindrance to Sullivan. I don't think he has any aspirations to take us forward. I don't think he wants to take us forward. I genuinely don't think he ever has really wanted to take us forward,
Well, look, I'll jump in and answer that, and this is the best way I can answer that, is the fact is that West Ham as a club traditionally has budgeted and set itself up to finish in 10th spot. Yeah. And that's from the horse's mouth. So if that's the case, then they're not happy with 17th spot. Well, so when they finish above 10th, the payments, that's money earned. And generally, in the past, they have then pushed that money towards being extra money spent in the transfer window. Now, which it has, but how often have we finished 10th or above? No. Yeah. So when we finish below 10th, we're below budget, and then they have to find money from elsewhere. Right. So that's the thing. When West Ham sit down at the start of the season or before the start of the season, and you're planning the budgets, they budget that West Ham is a 10th place team. So they're not happy with 17th spot.
Yeah, I know.
Now, where I would then go back to what you were saying about progression is, John, is the way the Premier League is now is that the clubs outside of the really big boys, or the big boys as I call them, it will go through periods. We had a period of Leicester being good, fell away, got relegated. Yeah. We Southampton finished above us a few seasons running, fell away, gone. We've maintained our Premier. This is the song. I said it last night on the first podcast we've done the season. This is the second longest continuous period of top flight football in West Ham's history. So there are kids now, 19, 20, that possibly don't remember us being relegated. Mm. You got to go back a long way for that to happen.
Yeah, but Nigel,
go back.
Listen, I'm not all about progression, right? I'm not.
No, so don't get hung up. But this is my point. There is no progression. Progression is going to end at some point, and you're going to have to accept the slide back.
So you think? So what you're saying is the not last season, but the 2 seasons prior to that, when we finished
was
Can't remember now,
progression.
fifth and seventh. That was almost progression, and
Well,
now we're on the downward trajectory, which is the norm.
Yes, but it's not to say that perhaps with the person that they've brought in this season, and that they're now maybe this is a change, this disappointment, and
what appointment?
Steidten, Tim Steidten.
Yeah.
And perhaps this ain't about this season. This is about next season, the season after, and whatever. Because at the end of the day, perhaps the fact that Moyes did win a trophy made him unsackable for this season. Still not got another contract. I fully expect that unless he pulls another rabbit out of the hat, that this will be the last season of David Moyes. So, and Steidten will then start, because he's about long term, about players. Again, why looking at this Man City player? You know, the story came out that we've got this Politburo that runs the transfers. The manager weren't too keen. The others were. They're pushing ahead with it, though, you know, until he's signed. He's not signed, is he? No matter what anyone says. But this was a target that we're supposed to be pulling over. Moyes ain't not a Moyes type player. No, but he's 19. He'll be here after Moyes has gone.
Yeah, but the only thing I'd say to that, Nigel, to counter that is, whilst I agree with you, because we've surmised that obviously, I'm going to just say Tim because it's a lot easier for me to pronounce.
Easier, yeah.
But
Tim,
you know, we even had a caller last week who put 2 and 2 together and said maybe Tim's been planted by the next potential ownership. Now that might be dreamland, right? But you laugh. But
because apparently Dave Sullivan's been selling the club. Yeah. So for the last 10 years, people have always said, "Oh, 2023 he's gone. 2023 he's gone. 23 turns up. Has he gone? No, he ain't. Does he look like he's going?
No.
Not unless someone coughs up the big money, because at the end of the day, he's a billionaire. He don't need the money.
But then, in your opinion, right? Do you see it as a power struggle where you've got David Moyes, who's in potentially the last year of his career at West Ham, which it probably will be? He's bringing in players for him, for a season potentially, right? If things go well, and then you've got Tim, who's looking to bring in players for the long term. That is a contradiction in terms. So why bring them in at all at this stage?
You say it's a contradiction. So I'll tell you why you bring them in, because you embed them in the club, and you get them ready, like the young players, and you get them ready for next season or the season after. It'll only be 21 in 2 years' time. It might be you're bringing them in for then, but you're getting them into the club. People have expected Tim to come into the club and start signing players. That was never going to happen. There was no way in this earth you allow a bloke to come in the club, be there for a month, and start going, "I want him, and him."
Nige, the only thing I'd say to that, mate. Again, sorry to interrupt you. The only thing I'd say to that is, we know what Tim Steidten's good for. We know he's got. Now I know you're gonna go against me here when I say this, but he's supposedly got a good reputation back in Germany. He's brought some good players up. No, listen, he has. He signed some good players. He's developed some good players. He spotted some good players. Now, we know he's been on gardening leave until he joined West Ham. But in that time frame, I'm sure he's been watching a lot of football. I'm sure he's got a little black book of players. He knew he was going to come to West Ham, surely. So surely he's got a back catalogue of players. Well, whoever he would have went to, Nige, whether it be us or Man United, whatever you choose to believe, he must have had players on the tip of his tongue looking to suggest that we bring in, no?
Well,
otherwise, what's the point of him being there?
I'm looking for. Well, this is the point, and this is the thing. So obviously, I've got a mate in Germany, a good mate of mine. So he texts me things, and he obviously watches Bundesliga, knows all about Tim and whatever. And he texted me the other day a word of Tim Steidten gave an interview to a Werder Bremen fan channel. That's a club that he was at Leverkusen.
Was it called Das Klarat am Bus?
No, it was called Dijkstube. So
and you're German.
Yeah, there you go. It was basically my friends surmised, obviously watched the interview in German, because it is in German. So he said, if we expect short-term success, he's the wrong person, as he plans in the 3 to 5 year periods. So he's not about the short term. He's about where West Ham want to be then.
Right.
He said he doesn't think actually he's geared up for the Premier League, my German friend. And he says there must be a reason why his talks with Chelsea, Spurs and Liverpool failed. Because
Okay, so
apparently
what you're saying is he is not as speedy in his success as we would imagine or like.
Yeah.
And do you think, therefore, then that the Premier League is maybe not the place for him? Because
Well,
the Premier League is almost instantaneous success demanded.
Yes, and this is a quote from him in that interview. He said there have been offers from the Premier League, but England is different with owners and the constructs of clubs. So before he comes to Premier League, he's saying in Germany,
You get more time.
it's 51% ownership by the fans, isn't it? But yes, they have a committee, but generally if you look at a lot of German clubs, so like he fell out at Leverkusen with Rudi Völler.
Yeah.
Rudi Völler runs Leverkusen. Rudi Völler was the German international from the 1980s.
Right.
At the World Cup in the early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, Bayern Munich have just sacked Oliver Kahn, and they had another bloke who played for Bayern Munich. These two were running Bayern Munich. You know, the general managers of a lot of football clubs were generally ex-players. We don't have that over here.
No.
You know, I don't know if the noble sop is coming about of it. But Steidten finished with everything has to fit in personally with the leading persons and with the structure of the club. Now, it could be that he ended up at West Ham because he was desperate to come to the Premier League and no other club would employ him. Now, if you take a hold up, yeah. So if you look, he's spoken with Chelsea and he's spoken with Liverpool. Yeah, if you look at the two managers they've got, yeah,
strong characters,
yeah. Far well respected in the field of management globally. In Pochettino and in Klopp, there's no way he's going to overpower those managers. Yeah?
So what you're
But West Ham, he's come into a club where the manager's got 1 year, and the manager is not universally loved by the fan base.
And therefore, you think that we are a club that potentially could give him the time that he needs?
Well, it could be that the ownership, Sullivan, wants to go down this model, because it's such a left field thing. West Ham have never really made this appointment before. You could say, we had Husilos here. Well, we had Husilos here, but Husilos came in the package with Pellegrini.
Yeah.
So when Pellegrini went out the door, Husilos had to go out the door as well. So this is totally separate over Moyes' head. And Moyes ain't going to walk away, because at the end of the day, when he left West Ham last time, he couldn't get another job and had to come back to us.
No.
But it could be that you know, Moyes this could be his last season. But that could then show why Moyes wants players for the here and now, because he knows his one chance of getting a new contract is a top 8 finish.
So in your mind, Moyes thinks if he gets top 8, he'll get another contract.
Yeah. I think that is the battle.
What's the realistic chances of us getting top 8?
Slim to none, in my
Exactly.
opinion.
It's a little bit unrealistic.
No, but then again, before we finish 6th, yeah, we just scraped relegation, and we would have been happy with a 10th spot. And this is the madness of it. But that, for me, could have been, we caught all the other teams on the hop, yeah, and then it took them 18 months, but they sussed out Moyes' ball.
No, I get it. So obviously you're not as over happy as we are about Tim's appointment, possibly. But you think he probably needs more time than we think.
I think we got to let it go and see where it comes, and you know, all this two in the front, and the thing about it, what's different now is, and it is made. I'm sitting on a show. It's content, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
My name's on a website that pumps out news, yeah, and it's all about content. And yet,
of course,
I sit here and go, but this is the problem. Sometimes we're so desperate to talk about things that in this, you know, summer break where there's no football about, we over talk about things. We overanalyze. We overthink.
Yeah, but you know, you know how we work, and you know especially how I work. I don't genuinely.
I'm saying the the whole social media bubble of West Ham, of which I'm part. You know, I'm criticising
we're all part
myself
of it. It's the way of the world now. But I do take everything with a pinch of salt. Right, I generally do. You know, we're linked with 80 players. I don't believe any of them are going to come to us until they're wearing our shirt, right?
Yeah. Well, that's good because none of them have so far.
Exactly. But in terms of players, in terms of lack of players coming into the club, I just want to get your take on all the rumours flying around about players potentially on the way out. Now, it would seem that Antonio wants to leave. A lot of people have been saying he's been pushing his move since January. Apparently, the Saudi Arabia deal may have fallen through because the Saudi club don't want to pay a fee, yet West Ham want a fee. You've got Scamacca, who is flying, apparently, and this is all apparently, it's all rumours. You've got Scamacca that's flying backwards and forwards to and from Italy, turns up when he wants. He's called 2 meetings, allegedly, with the club, trying to force his way out. You've got, I mean, this one for me is a little bit, Nikola Vlasic demanding a move to Torino. I mean, I'm not really sure if that's a surprise, but I
mean, on that, if people seen it, I make Vlasic right.
Yeah, I do. That to me, I respect him that he wants to move and play football. He could happily sit on the bench, but he wants to play first team football.
Yeah.
So I've got no problem with that. But then when you look at players like Antonio, who supposedly wants to go, you've got Aaron Cresswell. I don't know if you've heard this one, but Aaron Cresswell is supposedly refusing to train because Wolves have offered him a 3-year deal. And at his age, a 3-year deal is a big deal. Takes him through to the end of his career. And he earns more money for his family. So I admire him for that. And we've only got him on a 1-year deal remaining, I believe. Yeah. And we've not agreed a fee. So that to me is another issue. When you've got
we're hard up for money, aren't we?
What's that?
I said we're hard up for money, aren't we?
No, we're not. Well, so you don't believe that?
No, for me, I would have let Creswell go on a free 9 years service. Thank you very much, Aaron.
I agree with you. Yes, and that's the sort of thing I was getting to. When you get a player who and even Antonio, right? Look, Antonio, a lot of people will say he's made his bed, he's going to lie in it, but I do believe that in years to come.
Well, his problem, he was lying in other beds as well. But anyway,
yeah, that's another issue. But what I'm getting at is when do the club? I mean, look how long it took them to release Dawson. I know we had a few injuries and all that, but Dawson had a lot of family issues. He needed to go back up north. Cresswell, like you say, and people will slag him off for his mistakes in Europe last year and all that, and his legs are gone. Great servant, 9 years. You don't get that a lot these days. Nope. Antonio, for me, has been a great servant. I know he's ruined, amongst some, he's ruined his rep with some of the podcasts he's done. 8 years. Premier League top scorer for us, which I know is not a lot of goals, but it's still our Premier League top scorer.
Yeah.
When you hear all these stories going around and the club almost curtail, experienced veterans leaving the club and just saying, look, giving them a golden handshake almost. At what point do the club need to look at themselves and go, fucking hell, you're embarrassing yourselves here?
Yeah, the funny thing is, perhaps it's the lack of transfer activity has forced our hand in keeping them, unhappy or not. Because at the end of the day, I also look at those players, and it goes back to what I say is, in June, early June, that trophy win, peak West Ham, 43 years we've waited for that. The misery and the bad seasons and the Torquays and the Wigans and the Wimbledons that have knocked us out of cup competitions and everything else. Peak West Ham, they were part of it. They know it's only down from that peak. I don't see it with this current crop of players getting any better than that. So actually, perhaps especially when you look at the ages of Antonio and the Creswell, perhaps now was the right time. Thank you very much. When you retire and when the people that are 20 or 15 are 35 and 40, they will look back at you winning a trophy and you will be a legend of this club for winning a trophy. Yeah. Only 30, I think it was 34 West Ham players had ever won a winner's medal for West Ham before that night.
And I do think that of Antonio. I think quite rightly to some extent he gets a bit of stick quite rightly from the fans for some of the stuff he's done. I'm not excusing him for some of the stuff he said.
Once his career's done,
we'll remember him fondly when he's gone. I'm telling you.
And I'm keeping the pair of boots I've got of his until he is a legend because I'll get a few more quid for him.
I might buy one off you to go with my noble one.
Yeah, well, the price you pay, son, I'll definitely sell you one.
Oh, dear. So, obviously, talking about players at the other end of their career. So we've got all the old boys and that. And, you know, a lot of people in pre-season have been raving. Now, I know you don't pay much attention to pre-season, and nor do I. It's all about fitness, and I get that. But obviously, you've got Movember, who stood out. And
December, he was good.
Who?
December was good after Movember.
I can never say people's names. I'm terrible. No one's called Smith anymore. You got him, right? He's obviously been in and around the first team squad the back end of last season. He's had a good pre-season.
Yeah,
I think he scored 3 or 4 goals this season and in pre-season. You've also got Freddie Potts, who, I mean, I saw him play at Dagenham and Redbridge, and okay, it was only Dagenham and Redbridge, but I think he was brilliant. And they've just given him a professional contract, I believe, 2 or 3 year contract, which makes the association of the Potts family 40 years at West Ham now. Apparently.
Is he not only 18?
He is. But this is what I'm saying to you, right? If you've got players going out the door, they have so many bodies on the bench now, right, at Premier League games. Is it 8 or 9? Something ridiculous. I don't know what it is. Why, in my opinion, would you then send Freddie Potts out on loan to gain first team experience? I think if you're going to send him out on loan to Wycombe, who are what, League One?
Yes.
Personally, no disrespect to Wycombe Wanderers players, personally, I think that Freddie Potts would learn far more being in and around the first team squad on a daily basis, training with them on a daily basis, you know, with world-class players like Paqueta and things like that, and getting minutes in Carabao Cup matches or some of the early rounds of the Europa League and things like that. For me personally, why have we sent Potts out on loan? And it transpires today. Obviously, we've had all this big fixation with the West Ham transfer committee, you know, Steidten, Moyes, etc., etc. But you said that the youth team has, that the academy has a loans committee of its own doing, which is made up of Kenny Brown, Colton Cole, Mark Robson, Mark Noble, Mark Phillips, and Steve Potts, Freddie Potts' dad.
Yeah.
So we've got a committee now that decides whether academy players go on loan or not. Now, how do you feel about that? What do you think?
But that's right. That's how it should be. These are the youth player coaches. Yeah, they know they know your players better than Moyes or the people running the club do. These have got the day-to-day contact in. These players, these coaches would have had them since they were 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who better to make that decision on what is best for that young player and for West Ham United? Now, this is the thing. If he hadn't have popped in goals or whatever, it's quite possible that Mubama or Movember or whatever month of the year you want to call him, John, he could have been sent out on loan. Careful with that nut in your throat. Yeah. So, you know, but at the end of the day, the kid's taken his chance. So he's earned the right to actually stay at the club.
Yes.
To be a backup striker and everything. Funny enough, I think the strike partner whose name I can't remember and who was captain of the youth team was also an extremely great player. We've offered pro contracts.
11.
There you go. So
that's a big amount, and that's a big number.
That's a big number. That's a big number.
I think that's quite unheard of, I'm telling you.
Yeah. So what that says is, you know, these people won the league. These people won the Youth Cup. That's a big achievement as well. We've got a lot of faith in him. I said it before at the time. People screamed. We let all these under-21 players, we didn't send them out on loan. We gave them away for nothing or took 200 grand for them. And
because the next crop,
these kids are coming through. And you've got to trust the coaches down there, the Kenny Browns. You know, Kenny Brown's been in the youth coaching system for decades. You know, and he's come back to West Ham where he should have been. But he was successful at Millwall.
He was successful at Millwall, you're right.
And we've got Stevie Potts in. We've got Mark Phillips, who's been there for years and years. Fantastic youth coach.
Look, I love the way that the academy is predominantly full of ex-players. I think that is brilliant.
And here's the thing. Here's another reason, possibly, for a lack of transfer of activity. It's mad. It could be that we are looking now. Freddie Potts is is young and whatever. It could be that they've decided let's send him out on loan, see how he reacts.
I was just going to say that, Nigel. Do you think it might be a change of ethos? But then, if it's a change of ethos, then that again maybe eradicates what Tim's there to do. You
Well,
know, it's
no,
like
because this is what Tim's here to do. Yeah, when you look back at the German model, yeah,
bring the youth through.
bringing the youth through. The funny thing is, the Germans are so good at it. They're coming over here, buying
Yeah.
the best of our youth
English
players,
and taking them,
yeah, and then selling them back to us or other clubs, and they're banking the money.
No, you're right. I get that. So theoretically, Tim may be working closer with Mark Noble than he is David Moyes.
Yeah, I would expect that to, and that's what I think would be happening. I don't think Moyes probably is thinking they don't really want to entertain the bloke. Yeah, because Moyes is old school. Moyes comes from the manager that dictates everything. But and in a way, I do sometimes support that, because at the end of the day, who gets sacked when it goes wrong? So when David Sullivan buys players, he don't sack himself. He sacks the manager that couldn't get a tune out of those players that he bought, or the director of football bought.
Yeah. So just quickly, let me interrupt you again. People, we're going to wrap it up soon in terms of the ad-lib conversation. We're going to have a little quick Q&A. So if you please put the letter Q in a capital Q before a question, I'll read out a few to Nigel when we finish chatting here. So the only thing I'd say about that, Nigel, and we did speak briefly before we came on, is the fear that how many players have we sent on loan to League One and League Two clubs who have, as you said, have only ever become League One and Two players. That's my fear, because I always believe that iron sharpens iron. And that's what I mean. I mean, I understand the loan process to some extent, but I do think it can be a hindrance.
The one way to stop it from happening for me, actually, and perhaps why I don't, is to bring back reserve football. So after the under-18s, instead of having under-21s, you have reserve football. And what you have, because this is the madness of it, is years ago, for those who don't know, you had reserve footballs. They used to play at home on a Saturday when we West Ham were playing away, and it would be the first team players that hadn't gone up. You know, so normally they'd take 13 away with them. That'd leave 5. They used to have 18, 20-man squads max back then. The reserve goalkeeper would get a run out in the reserves, and you'd have old season pros and youth players. You know, if you go and watch Canning Town's Lens film, The Boys of 74, and not so much about them getting to the final of the Youth Cup, but listen to the stories of the players that are 15 are playing reserve team football with Bobby Moore.
Yeah, no,
you know,
no, you're right.
Kids of these days, you know, we got the likes of Lanzini who sat on the bench time and time again. But if he'd have had a reserve game in the week, he'd have been getting that sharpness and getting the fitness and playing with the young kids, and that inspires them. Imagine what the young kids would have been playing with the Lanzini.
I used to watch a bit of reserve team. You know, I didn't mind watching reserve football. So yeah, I'm all for that, mate.
There's that to it, but and this is the thing. You know, it does seem this is at the moment we're going to use this a transitional West Ham.
But I like what you're saying. You're saying it's a transition not for the first team, but it's a transition almost for the youth, giving those 11 pro contract youth players,
not
which is a massive number.
It's a transition
of the
for
club
West Ham United Football Club itself.
So almost going back to the Academy of Football, or trying to.
Well, yes. Yes.
All right. Listen, I'm gonna. We've been going for an hour just over now. So thanks for the chat, Nigel. But there's people in the chat and they love getting involved. So there's a few questions. Sorry if I don't get to your question. Obviously, it's time permitting, people. We can't go on forever. So I'm going to pull some of the questions. And luckily, it's our mate Nigel Eastside, who loves us now. By the way, remember Eastside? He loves us now. But he's got a very nice.
I don't believe it.
He's got a very nice opening question for you, mate. It's very basic, but I think it's interesting, even though you'll go, oh, whatever. What made you support West Ham, Nigel, and what area are you from? Go on.
Why am I laughing at that, John? Come on.
Because you're an out-of-towner now, aren't you? But go on.
No, because you tried to palm me off with that one, and I told you to fuck off. So I know why you picked that one first. What made you support West Ham? I was born into a family of it. I was born in Plaistow Maternity Hospital on Balaam Street, and I grew up in and around Plaistow and Canning Town up until the age of 14. My mum moved me out to Barking, and then at the age of 21, I did what nobody seems to do, is I moved back and then I lived in Plaistow until I moved out in my late 30s. So I'm only on the edge. I'm out on by Lakeside now. So I'm only not, but I'm still back in Plaistow every week. I'll be there in the morning. I'll be having breakfast. In Forest Gate tomorrow, and then trundling down to Plaistow. So
here's another question for you, Nigel. Who would you replace Moyes with if you had your choice? If you had your choice, what manager, if at all, you know anyone that you think would be of interest to you and be good for the club? Anyone out there that you think?
Well, I'm not one looking far and wide and whatever. Generally, I would always have preferred a West Ham manager to have a West Ham connection, but that don't always work. If I was out there looking with Steidten, we didn't really get to it. But I think Alonso's at Leverkusen. If you're going to have Steidten, bring him in someone that's worked with him. If I'm picking and choosing, blimey, that's a tough one. I'd be definitely keeping an eye on Michael Carrick again this season.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, I think if Carrick does well again this season, because he did brilliant last year.
Yeah,
took them from relegation to almost getting up into the Premier League. Yeah. I think Michael Carrick is one that we need to keep an eye on.
The managers, and also look at the managers he played under. He played under,
Ferguson.
Harry Ferguson. Yeah.
No, you're right. That's a good shout, mate. That's a great shout. We've got Jonathan Boyce here who says, based on recent history, is only youth player made it, did not go out on loan. Same can be said for Man United, etc.
Well, is he saying that the only youth player to make it at West Ham never went out on loan based on recent history?
Talking about Rice. Rice.
Yeah, he is in a way. I mean, at the end of the day, Mark Noble went out on loan. Mark Noble broke into the first team before he went out on loan.
Yeah,
got into the first team. Yeah. We got promoted, and then we sent him out to Ipswich and Hull. Before we were having such a bad time, we brought him back before
he hated Hull. He hated it up at Hull, didn't he?
Yeah.
I read his autobiography. My God, he loved Ipswich though. He did like Ipswich. Well, it's closer, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
Being a Canning Town boy as he is. Moving on, we've got one here. Adam Levitt, Nigel, what do you think of all the tickets now going digital? How do you think it'll affect fans like me and older fans? Can the club change it?
Can the club change it? Yes, they can.
They want to. Yeah.
The only thing is, Adam, I'd say contact the club again as you did last season. I've been given the impression that if you had a plastic card last season, as I did,
you get one again.
Not get one again.
Just reuse it.
If you still think they just load your season ticket on it, and everywhere I go, it's like my flexible friend. That's me Nando's card. You don't want that.
Nando's so overrated.
Ticket, yeah. It's only got one stamp on it, believe me. So that actually, I expect to be using it. I don't think.
Hang on a minute, Nigel. Sorry to interrupt you. Someone's popped up. Loose lips sink ships, Nigel.
Oh, yeah, he's upset over the youth coaching, the loan thing, obviously.
Why?
Oh, well, I don't know. It's a big secret.
Nigel, if you was given the reins at West Ham, what would be your first priority? Mine would be the training facilities and merging Rush Green with Chadwell Heath.
Yeah, the thing is, I've always thought the training facilities have to be of a certain standard. Now, the thing about the porter cabins is, but that's not used by the players. That's used by the media department.
And no, they don't look good. It's not
a
good look.
It's funny because I once played a game against West Ham United staff at Chadwell Heath years ago.
Yeah.
And the boy, a boy that worked for me, and I had him in the team. And he drove us into the ground, and it was porter cabins. It was stacked up when we drove into Chadwell Heath with porter cabins, and he was laughing his head off at the state of it. But at the end of the day, it's not the surrounding buildings that have to look nice. It's the equipment that's in it. And rest assured, West Ham have got some of the best training equipment and machines that stocked in there. So
you sound like you're pro Sullivan tonight.
I'm not pro Sullivan. What I'm saying is that people get hung up on this training ground and the state of it, and for me, it's not the biggest thing to be upset about.
It's a question for me, for Virg. How many nuts can you fit in your mouth at the same time? Just 2, Mikey. If you want to pop over, I'll show you. Hang on, where are we? Where are we?
I thought you was more coffee than teabagging.
Sean Whetstone, when is Nigel going to write an article for 6'2"? Cheeky.
Stop putting his fucking. I thought I got shot of him.
Do you think it's got to be an Arsenal fan? Do you think you will miss Declan Rice? And what is Rice's best position? What is his best position?
We won't miss him and centre half. There you go.
Left back in the changing room. Yeah. Malcolm Brand says, how many months do you think Moyes will survive?
I'll tell you what, I'd give him till November.
See where you're at?
And see see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way. It's a compliment here for you, mate. Peter Chelmsford. Nigel, you look like you've lost weight. Have you been on a diet or just worried about relegation? Nigel, don't worry about relegation.
Mate, no, I couldn't give a monkeys about relegation. It's an occupational hazard as a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
As I lost weight, well, mate, I've just canoed 95 kilometres across Scotland in 5-6 days. So, yeah.
Where are we? Any more questions coming in? Thanks for the questions, people. I'm really sorry if you know, I won't get through them all. I know you're not hot on this sort of thing, Nines, but 3 players you'd like to bring in, realistically.
I mean, I must admit, 3 players I'd like to bring in.
Of all the ones we've been linked with, are there any of them that you would take?
Yeah, I would take James Ward-Prowse.
You would take James Ward-Prowse.
I think his ability to people look at his dead ball situation, but his crossing of the ball is pretty decent as well. So, and when you think that predominantly the success under Moyes was when we were clinical from set pieces and corners, James Ward-Prowse is definitely one. I would like a couple of younger players.
Yeah.
To have come in.
I think for me, James Ward-Prowse, I think 40 million is too much. Yeah. I'd be happy to have him at the club for the right price, but like you say, you'd like to have a bit of youth.
I'll tell you what, I would have loved.
Conor Gallagher.
Conor Gallagher.
I agree with you. I think he's the sort of player that we're crying out for, full of energy, full of beans.
I'd never heard of him until he scored 2 goals against us for Palace, I think, at the London Stadium.
You never heard of him?
I'd never heard of him. He scored 2 goals for Palace.
He was on loan at West Brom before them. I thought he had a good loan spell at West Brom as well.
I didn't remember him then, and I thought, blimey, he's a bit special. And it was
I
was
like
on loan from Chelsea.
I like him. I think he's been messed around at Chelsea personally.
Yeah.
I think he's got energy, but again, 50 million. People just look at the price tag, and I get why.
I'd pay that for him.
Yeah, I probably would. But my concern at the moment is that a lot of West Ham fans, quite rightly, but in my mind, not so right, they're sort of directly comparing what we're going to get with what we've lost. And I think a lot of West Ham fans need to realise we're not going to replace what we've lost like for like. No. We're not going to get that straight away. You might be able to mould someone into that player.
Do you know,
but honestly, I can't see it.
Strangely, sometimes when we've lost a player of that ilk, the club's actually done better the following season. Because actually, we got so hamstrung by playing through this one player that when that player was no longer there, we actually functioned better as a team. And that's not besmirching.
So you're hoping that some of the players might step up a little bit.
Yeah, that's not besmirching Declan Rice because hands down, the kid was absolute quality.
Yeah, no, I agree. A lot of people in the chat are actually sort of pro Gallagher, and I think 50 million, but. You know, the problem is he's English, he's Premier League games. It's like a tax, isn't it? They're English, they play games already. And people know we've got the money. So that's always going to happen. Yeah. This is going to be probably the last question. Victor Fenn. We have lost 2 coaches, Nigel. Would you employ from within the club, i.e. maybe Kevin Keane? So he's obviously alluding to the fact that we've lost coaching staff. Moyes is pretty much seems to be on his own there at the moment. Would you get any of the current
Alan Irvine still sits in the background. I think he's still on the payroll.
Yeah, but he does he sort of scouts for teams, doesn't he? So
but he's still a confidant of Moyes. Someone's a sounding board. You got Kevin Nolan is still there, who was brought in by Moyes at
Yeah,
the
I
end
like
of the day.
Nolan. I like Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, Nolan's a bit of a weird thing for me because he's one of very few players that I initially really disliked.
Really, yeah?
And
Because of his
actually,
affiliation with Sam, though.
Because to the point that when he scored his first goal for West Ham, I just sat in my seat.
Yeah, because you saw him as son of Big
He
Sam
was,
almost.
he
didn't
was
you?
son of Sam.
Yeah,
He was part of the Boltification of West Ham with Juicy Jaskeline and, O'Neill and
Joey O'Brien.
Joey O'Brien. There was about 7 players from Bolton at one point that we, and I see it as that. But actually, I think he was a fantastic player. Only said good things about the club, and to come back to West Ham in the coaching capacity. He's won me over. Definitely,
I totally agree with you, and I think he loves the club. I mean, he didn't spend a long time playing for us, really. How long was he here? 3 or 4 years?
2011 he came and he left in 2015.
So 4 years. So it wasn't a long time. It wasn't a big chunk of his career, but I think he definitely fell in love with the club in that short space of time. And I like him. I like what he offers, and I just like him. He's a likable guy, and obviously he stayed local to West Ham. I think he lives sort of Epping way. So he's a good lad. He's a good lad.
Does he drink in pubs? Does he?
Anyway, moving on. We've got one last question because this is one that's been all over social media. Who do you think, or who do you want, if it was your choice, who would be the next West Ham captain?
Here we go. So if it was me, I would probably be giving it to Fabianski.
What? Fabianski?
Yeah, well, he's going to be number 1. Yeah, for a start.
Hang on. Let's get to 2 points here, right? First and foremost, he's 39, and
we can have it for a year.
Hang on. He's got a year left.
Yeah.
Secondly, he's going to be our number 1.
Yeah, I do think he'll be our number 1.
You love Fabianski, didn't you?
Fabianski is possibly the second best goalkeeper for West Ham that I've seen.
No, look, I love Fabianski. I've got nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah.
I think he carries himself professionally. He never seems to be ruffling anyone's feathers, and I'd imagine he's a likable guy around the camp. But for me, I just sort of think, what is the point of Areola? Like, I don't get when he's going to get his goal. But I know you don't really rate Areola either, do you?
Well, no, it's not that I don't rate Areola. I think
not as highly as Fabs.
No, not true. I think Areola's as good as Fabianski. But what my point of view is that Fabianski really has never let us down. He's never been a calamity goalkeeper. He hasn't. So actually, he's never lost that number 1 shirt. Perhaps this is the season that he'll step aside and let Areola be number 1.
Maybe.
And whatever. But
maybe, yeah. Go on.
But who else you got at the end of the day? I'm not sure. Giving it to a guard. Ogbonna, again, you could say the same about Fabian. The next one is the thing is, you say Souček because he's a midfield general and whatever, but he's a player that fell out with Moyes and definitely at some point was hoping to leave the club.
For me, I always think a captain has got to be someone who sees everything in front of him. So I get what you're saying about Fabianski. Yeah, but for me,
you shouldn't give it to a goalkeeper. Realistically, it should be a centre half or a defender.
For me, it's a defender at the very least. Yeah. I would go Aguerd purely because he can speak 4 or 5 languages. He can obviously communicate with everybody else on the pitch.
Is English one of them?
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's all right then. No, I don't know.
What's that good?
Just he's got to be able to speak English, isn't he?
He speaks 4 or 5 languages. How many languages you speak?
I struggle with 1.
So I've noticed on tonight's show. Right, listen, we're going to have to cut it now. It's been a fantastic chat. We're nearly at 1 hour, 20 minutes.
Is that a record for these shows?
No, I think Nick done one with Ryan Archer from West Ham Fan TV. He called him YouTube royalty. I mean, his nose couldn't get any browner, could it? You know what I mean? Only joking. Only joking, Ryan. You are royal, I think. But anyway, Nigel, West Ham's unofficial historian, thank you very much for coming on tonight and making my first...
Only the second best West Ham museum.
You've got the second best West Ham museum. Yeah, that other geezer's one. I'm sorry.
Mate, actually, that hands down, that is by far.
Yeah.
By far.
I'd love to visit that. I've probably got more chance of visiting that than your one.
You're welcome here anytime, John. And the funny thing is that once I show you my collection, you may think differently, but you know.
It's all about presentation, mate.
It's all about presentation. Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Nigel. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for everyone in the chat. Obviously, these shows are less interactive than our normal stuff. So
yeah, I've not watched the chat at all. So if you slag me off, well done.
Yeah, no, Gary, we have monitors in there. Gary's quite good, and Nick's been in there as usual. Loves getting involved. But thanks everyone for watching. If you've loved what you watched, then please hit the like button. Don't forget to follow Nigel on 6foot2.com on his website, and more than just a podcast. I'm sure you know him already.
6foot2.co.uk, but don't worry, John,
you
was nearly there. Well done.
The other one. Yeah. But thanks for watching, and hit the like button. And yep, until next time, take care, people. Good luck. Go on, your wines. Go on, Nigel.